I've spent the last 6 months living with this, the cheapest SUV BYD has to offer, and coming to the end of that experience, I'm here to tell you about its excellent tech, comfy specs, and why I think it still needs to be cheaper yet. Car makers usually send us journalists the tippy top of the ladder when it comes to a car, which means it has all the bells and whistles to keep our magpie-like brains interested and excited. However, for this, we decided to go the complete opposite direction and book in the Atto 2 Boost, which makes this not only the cheapest SUV that BYD sells, but also the cheapest version of the cheapest SUV that BYD sells. Right, now we've got that out of the way, let's talk about design, and it's okay. I mean, sure, it's not exactly helped out by the paint. BYD calls this time grey, and it is very much grey. Any other colour, and you're paying an extra £750. That's for white, black, or what is a slightly more interesting, pale hiking green. This has a bit of metallic flake in it, which makes it a little bit more interesting, but the most interesting thing I can say about the colour is that it matches the wheels. Speaking of which, you get 17-inch alloys across the Atto 2 range, but what's much more attractive about this general area is these chunky sidewall tyres. They're a 60 section, which should make it feel like we're riding on air, literally, but more on that later. Okay, back to broader looks. See, I look at this, my brain registers it as a car and then moves swiftly onwards. It sounds really boring, and to be fair, it is, but I think there's a strategy at play here. BYD needs to appeal to as many customers as possible. That's both consumers and corporates. So they've gone the inoffensive route. And yes, it is incredibly boring, but I still prefer it to something a little bit more polarizing. Looking at you, Nissan Duke. Personally, I prefer the visual intrigue of something like a Renault 4 or a Fiat Grande Panda, but I'll admit they're not necessarily for everyone. What I'm trying to say is, when Ginny had her Renault 5 in, she named it Yoda because it was small and green. But for this, I've called it Graham. You see what I'm getting at? No offense to any Grahams out there, of course. Besides that, there are a few more interesting little details, like for example, we get some plastic cladding along the side here, which is apparently standard on all SUVs these days. It stands out a bit more on cars that aren't grey. We also get some non-finicky door handles here, which do feel a little bit plasticky, but because they don't have to pop out, they're a huge win in my books. Moving around to up front, we get a sort of faux light bar situation going on here, which I think is cohesive, especially with the design at the rear too, but it would be much cooler if this bit actually lit up. Okay, I will admit there is one feature I do quite like about the exterior design of the Atto 2. It's somewhere back here. Overall, the design is again inoffensive, but you may have already guessed my favourite bit is this light bar. Yes, a real one, unlike the front. I also rather like these woven tail lights. They rather fondly remind me of the Super S we all used to do in early secondary school, only this time it looks like they've flipped it on its side a little bit. While we're back here, let's talk about boot space, shall we? You get 450 litres of space with the seats in place. That's enough for 4 to 5 fully packed bags for life in my experience. Compare that with the VW ID.3, which gets 383 litres of space, or with the MG4, which comes in at 363, and all of a sudden the Atto 2 looks quite capacious. You also get cubbies either side for smaller items to stop them from rolling around, or indeed to catch smaller items once they've finished rolling around. And if you come a bit closer, you can see that we've got storage underneath the boot floor as well, which is enough for plenty of other small items, or in this case, the rat's nest of cables I keep in here. Fold those rear seats flat and you get up to 1,370 litres of space back here. That's enough for an insulated composter, I'll have you know. I went and collected one from Watford for my mum, and it took it like an absolute champ. As a matter of fact, I reckon you could probably fit 2 of them in here. Storage up front is rather disappointing, and not even because there isn't any. It's just because there's so much unutilised space up here. Reroute an AC line or something, and you could very easily fit, I reckon, 30 litres of storage up here. Fortunately though, the aftermarket has thought of that, and there are several kits available online that let you add a frunk to your Atto 2. There are even conveniently placed little holes for you to mount it to. Not sure why BYD didn't think of it, but at least you can do it yourself. Before we move on, let's talk about key specs. The Atto 2 Boost we have here comes with a 51 kWh LFP battery using BYD's own Blade architecture. It sends power to a 174 horsepower electric motor powering the front wheels only, and gives this Atto 2 a maximum WLTP rated range of 214 miles with a 0 to 62 time of 7.9 seconds. As far as adding range goes, the Atto 2 can charge at a maximum rate of 65 kilowatts, which gets you from 30 to 80% in 29 minutes, with a more conventional 10 to 80% charge taking closer to 40 minutes in my experience. Upgrade to the Atto 2 Comfort, which is what I recommend you do, and things get much better with a 64.8 kilowatt hour battery, 201 horsepower, charging speeds of up to 155 kilowatts, and a maximum WLTP rated range of 267 miles, which is just under 430 kilometers. One extra note I'd like to make about the Atto 2 comes in the form of vehicle to load. That basically lets you just use a car as a massive 240 volt battery bank. This one has 3.3 kilowatts of capacity for that, and the best bit comes in the form of the adapter. While most manufacturers will just give you a single plug that sort of bolts into this Type 2 port and gives you a single 3-pin plug on the other side, BYD has gone a different route. They give you this adapter, which, yes, again, still plugs in the same place, but instead of just one plug, it gives you 4. So it saves you from having to lug around your own extension cord. I used it very recently to power a projector and a PlayStation 3 so I could have an outdoor video games night in an industrial estate. I'm sure you can come up with your own ideas. Welcome to my office. I jest, but one of my favourite things to do since I started electrifying is to take test cars and charge them on company time. Don't tell Ginny. But the trick is, I take my laptop with me. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because it gives me a chance to test out all the seats I wouldn't usually get to while driving. But more on that later. If the exterior of the Atto 2 felt a little bit low effort and cookie cutter, then the interior is very different. Not only do things feel very well screwed together, but it's good to look at. I'm not usually much of a fan of the more nautically themed BYD interiors, but everything in here feels coherent, flows together nicely, and nothing is too out there. Like I said, has to please everybody. You'll notice that despite having sprung for the dark grey interior, you can also get cream by the way, things still feel remarkably light in here, and that's thanks mostly to this massive glass roof above my head. It comes with an electronic cover to close it, and there are capacitive buttons on the roof here to open and close it, which I find a little bit difficult to find and use while driving, but still, it's a nice feature to have. And speaking of light, I'm not usually a massive fan of excessive interior ambient lighting that makes things feel like you're sitting inside a gaming PC. Thankfully, things are quite pared back here. We've got some nice halos on the door panels, and that's about it. I couldn't find any way to change the color of that lighting. I think you might just have to stick with the standard blue, but still, it's a nice thing to have. As far as creature comforts go, you get heated seats up front, you get a heated steering wheel, which is quite nice, and you get a wireless charging pad in the middle here, which is actively cooled. Now, I didn't really find those cooling vents to be doing all that much. I still got several warnings from my Pixel 9 Pro saying it was overheating when I was trying to use Google Maps, but it's nice to have. Another small thing about that wireless charging pad, actually, putting my phone on it, there was about a 50-50 chance that it would flash up a warning on screen claiming that there was an obstruction on the wireless charging pad, despite still charging my phone just fine. But it wouldn't go away until you press OK, which makes things a little bit difficult while driving. It's just a bit distracting. While we're in this general area, let's talk about the screen, shall we? On a surface level, it's good. It's bright, responsive, sizable, and it has that standard BYD feature where it will do the spinny thing. I used that maybe once before realizing that you can't use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto with it in this orientation, but you know, maybe one day they'll use it to watch electrifying.com Instagram reels. Just use your phone for that in the meantime and not while driving. One thing I was really impressed about for this car, especially as tech goes, is the camera system. You've got every angle you could think of under the sun. There's cameras dotted all around this thing. It'll even let you do a special little 3D mode, which lets you spin the car around on screen so you can see how close you are to a curb or how close you are to the car in front of you when you're parallel parking. It even has a special feature which lets you see what's going on underneath the car. That's usually something that's reserved for your more hardcore off-road SUVs out there. But for this, I suppose you could see if you've accidentally parked in a disabled bay. The sound system is, well, quite bad, to be honest. I know it's not a deal breaker for most, but if you do a lot of long journeys like myself and you like to listen to a lot of music or podcasts, then I found in its default configuration, It was quite uncomfortable to listen to. I had it such that the music sounded like it was coming from directly behind me somehow, and that's despite having the fader and the balance all set smack bang in the middle. More importantly though, I found calls on the motorway to be almost completely inaudible. I'm not sure how they've managed to mess that up so badly, but quite often on the way to a shoot, I'll give our cameraman Jonty a call just to, make sure everything's on track, and I can't hear him for the life of me. Another fun detail on this, the volume only goes up to 39. Now that's completely immaterial, but fun fact, that's probably because the number 4, and by virtue 40, is considered unlucky in most East Asian countries. I won't go into all the storage details right now, but you get 2 cup holders up front, obviously your aforementioned wireless charging pad, a little bit of storage underneath, complete with a glass breaker and seatbelt cutter. But if you want to know all of it, I suggest you click up there and watch our normal review. There's plenty of space in the back seat too. I, at 6'3", fit behind myself very easily, and I'm leggy too, but my knees don't butt up against anything. If you're taller in the bod department though, there's still plenty of headroom. But you should bear in mind that this central seat is slightly raised over the 2 that flank it. That, speaking of which, there is no transmission tunnel in this car, despite it being a shared platform with the plug-in hybrid version. Another fun detail, you get 3 pockets on the back of the seat here, so you can store more than just your road atlas, and a hole in the back of the seat so you can poke your driver in the back of the head, should you feel so inclined. Other fun bits you might notice, there is more ambient lighting here on the door panel like there is up front, and you get 2 USB-C sockets underneath your air conditioning vent. But we should move on to what should be the fun bit in theory. Let's go for a drive. From an isolation perspective, there's really nothing to complain about in here. As I mentioned earlier, those 17-inch wheels are a real blessing. This is what I would call a bad quality road, and it's not too noisy in here. The car is completely unperturbed, and I'm pretty comfy. Speaking of, actually, when you're driving around town, usually 30 miles an hour, and you spot a pothole just that little bit too late, usually I'd clench up and I make a noise that sounds a bit like eee. But in this car, that feeling is completely evaporated. You can hit potholes, and I'm not advising you do this, but you can hit potholes at pretty much whatever speed you like, and the car doesn't care. You barely even feel them. So yes, it's comfy, but that does come at a little bit of a cost. Usually here, in terms of body control, I'm on a nice British B road at the moment, and you lean into a corner and things get a little bit wobbly. See what I mean? Any larger bump and, it soaks it up, but it doesn't control the body very well. You're left feeling like things are wallowing around a bit, and sometimes they can feel a little bit unstable. It's very much a recipe for a nauseated mother. Ask me how I know. Ride quality aside, I would say that the Atto 2 goes rather well. No, it's not the fastest thing in the world, far from it. In fact, this will do 0 to 62 in 7.9 seconds. The comfort will be a little bit quicker, obviously, having about 30 more horsepower, but I never feel that this is too slow to be pulling onto motorways with or overtaking the odd tractor from time to time. It's perfectly functional. The brakes, on the other hand, are a little bit harder to manage. They're perfectly functional, they bring the car to a stop very easily in fact, but the way they do that can be a little unsettling at times. Particularly in the case of the regenerative braking. You get 2 settings in this car. One is called standard and the other is high. I think it's pretty self-explanatory as to which one is which in there, but you don't get any one-pedal driving capability, unfortunately. With it in high though, when you apply the brakes, it can be quite bitey, which is surprising considering you're not even touching the friction brakes at that point. It also makes coming to a stop without a judder pretty much impossible, and I love doing a limousine stop in most cars. A quick note on efficiency then. According to the WLTP cycle, the Atto 2 should do a maximum of 4.2 miles per kilowatt hour at its most efficient, and across the range it comes standard with a heat pump. However, perplexingly, it is still quite inefficient with HVAC in use. I'm not quite sure how they've managed that, to be honest. I mean, even with the AC on at just 19 degrees, it's still only managed 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour in the city. That equates to about 181 miles of range, or like 290 kilometers to you. One thing I will say in the defense of the Atto 2's drive is that it is at least predictable. It may be floppy, but it is reliably floppy. So once you're accustomed to it, it's very unlikely that you'll be caught off guard. So that's pretty much all you need to know about my experience with the BYD Atto 2. But why did I say I think it needs to be cheaper? Well, to figure that out, let's look at some competitors. For starters, the Fiat Grande Panda. That will do 15 miles less range on paper, but in practice will definitely go a little bit further and starts at £20,995. How about the Renault 4 E-Tech, for example? That'll do more range on paper and in practice and comes in at £23,445, including the electric car grant. Plus, both of those cars come with buckets more character to boot. But what if you want to step up a class and get something that's closer in size to the Atto 2? Well, then you can have a look at the VW ID.3 Neo, perhaps. That starts at £33,080, but will go a full 45 miles further on a single charge, though it does sacrifice a little bit on boot space. The Atto 2 doesn't get the electric car grant, sure, but even if it did, it still wouldn't quite make financial sense in my opinion. Granted, yes, it does still hold advantages like having heated seats, a heated steering wheel, a glass roof and a little bit more space, but even when you compare it to the ID.3, it loses most of that space advantage. And the price? £30,875 for the version I wouldn't even recommend. If you want the comfort, it's even more. I think that is a bit of a shame.
Even looking at lease deals, based on a 48-month contract with 5,000 annual miles and a 6-month initial rental period, the BYD Atto 2 Boost comes in at £359 per month on Carparison. Meanwhile, the VW ID.3 Neo can be had for £303 and the Kia EV3 can be had for as little as £364. That's just £5 more than the Atto 2 for what I would consider to be a much better car overall.
So there you have it. A car built for the masses, but held just a few £1,000s out of reach. But what do you think? Would you take a BYD Atto 2 over the likes of a Renault 4? Let us know down in the comments. And if you want even more detail about my experience with this car, check out my full written long-term review on electrifying.com. See you next time.